question that sometimes comes up after a mass shooting is, why is this not considered terrorism? It turns out the answer is not so simple. We want to bring in now our Justice Department reporter, Paula Reid in Washington. She has an explanation for us. And Paula, I know this can be very tricky. Why are we not calling these mass shootings terrorism specifically?
Jamie, I get this question after every mass shooting. It actually reminds me of one of my favorite Supreme Court cases where Justice was asked to define pornography, and he said, I can't really define it, but I know it when I see it. And that's how people feel about terrorism. Even if they can't define it, they just know when they see these mass shootings, they say this is terrorism. But Jamie, terrorism has a legal definition, and that's why today you saw the FBI and the Attorney General, they were so careful in terms of referring to this event as terrorism, because their language has legally binding consequences. Now, in this case, we don't have a motive, but even when they eventually determine a motive in this case, that doesn't resolve the issue either. For example, in the case of Dylann Roof, there people argued that was terrorism. The Department of Justice disagreed. They chose to charge that as a hate crime because they said it would be easier to make their case. So after every mass shooting, you see this controversy.
You're right. What exactly is the legal definition of terrorism then? And have there been any efforts to amend the terminology?
Well, I have a few of the statutes right here, and essentially they say terrorism is defined as any violence calculated to coerce a civilian population or government. Well, that sounds fancy, but it's very difficult to prove, which is why prosecutors often use other laws to successfully prosecute cases, because it's difficult to prove what's going on in someone's mind. In terms of whether or not there'll be an effort to change the laws, they're constantly evolving. After Oklahoma City, the laws change. Post 9/11, terrorism laws change. So the laws are constantly being amended and changed to combat whatever threat is before the Department of Justice and local law enforcement.
I know that's where material support laws sometimes come into play here. Those sometimes stick, right?
Absolutely. Material support laws, that's what a lot of these ISIS-inspired and ISIS-supporting individuals have been charged with. Now, post 9/11, law enforcement said, look, we need to find a way to prevent the next spectacular attack. Al-Qaeda puts a lot of time and effort into planning big attacks. We want to be able to charge them while they're planning those attacks, not after they actually conduct these attacks. So the material support laws were beefed up, and material support essentially means you did something to support the planning of some sort of act of violence in support of a foreign terrorist organization. So now with all these ISIS supporters, if you drive someone to the airport on their way to Syria to fight with ISIS, or if you raise money for ISIS, you can be charged under these material support laws. In fact, they just increased the penalty for material support laws from 15 years to 20 years. So it's been an extremely important tool for prosecutors to use in combating the current terrorist threat. However, those laws have been criticized by civil liberties advocates who argue that it's a slippery slope to charge people before they actually commit an act of violence.
Yeah, we've seen that in a number of cases as well. Paula, thank you so much.